What's up, YouTube? My name is Triple Cap, and today you're going to learn something. The first thing I want to point out is it's been cut. No more nipple-high weeds. No more 10-foot tall briars. It's been cut. But like I was saying, today you're going to learn something. Today I'm going to bring you another political video. I know, y'all hate them, you hate them, everybody gives me dislikes, but I have a different opinion than most, and I like to share it. Today we're going to talk about net neutrality. What is it? What does it mean? Is it scary? Net neutrality in concept is open internet. It's internet that's free for the public to access. By concept, it's unrestricted, meaning that Comcast can't stop you from going to this site because they don't like that site. It means Comcast won't slow this person's internet down because they don't like that person. And as a concept, it's golden. It's perfect. It's exactly what we want. Net neutrality is good. We want free internet. We want open internet. We don't want to be restricted. We want it to be open. So in concept, it's great. It's what the people demand. But here's where the problem lies. That's not exactly what we're talking about today. That's not exactly what the FCC is considering repealing. It's not the concept. It's not the principle. It's the classification. So let's take it back. 2015. Well, it started before that, but we're going to take it back to 2015 for now. Somewhere around 2015, there was a big argument, let's call it, an argument between Comcast, one of the leading, the leading ISP in the country, and Netflix, one of the largest streaming networks in the world. So these two companies were going at each other's throat. Netflix was using up all the bandwidth, and Comcast wanted them to pay for it. Netflix refused. The next thing you know, we're hearing all this talk about net neutrality, and all this fear is being pushed into the interwebs. Net neutrality. They're gonna throttle your internet. They're gonna restrict you from seeing websites. They're gonna make you buy packages. All this fear was pushed. Suddenly you're hearing about net neutrality, you're hearing about open internet. Netflix was a major proponent of that push, of that legislature, of that, all that fear-mongering, which is what I'm calling it because that's what it is. Because prior to that, at no point ever did you ever have any problems with internet being throttled, with restricted internet access. It was never like that because the public would have thrown a fit and Comcast would have gone out of business. The fear-mongering, it was just a fear tactic ploy. What it comes down to is Comcast wanted more money. People were demanding more speed. We want to go faster. We want to go faster. They're not demanding this speed because Google.com doesn't load fast enough. They're demanding this speed because Netflix HD is buffering. Because YouTube 4K videos are buffering. Well, more speed means more technology, more money that needs to be spent. And if YouTube, Netflix, if these websites are utilizing and requiring the most of these speeds in this broadband, then yeah, I think it's reasonable to say they should pay a little bit more. And supposedly they do, but Comcast said we need more. We've got to build, we've got to expand, we've got to improve. And eventually, here's the thing. While all this fear-mongering was going on their own, without any government interference, Netflix and Comcast squashed it. They came to an agreement. Netflix paid a certain amount. They actually became partners, and now you can watch Netflix from Comcast. Now they're best friends. Now Netflix doesn't give a shit about net neutrality. Their recent statement said, we're not worried about the repeal. They said, we don't care. They basically just said, the people know what they're allowed to have. It doesn't benefit them to push net neutrality any longer, so they don't, and they don't really care about it. The only reason they were pushing it in the first place is for leverage against Comcast. And now, today, in 2017, it's brought back up. Why? Because all of that fuss, all that fear-mongering created a change in classification for the internet, for ISPs. It took them from Article 1, which is what it was at, and it had been at forever, for years and years and years, ever since the internet exists. It went from an information service to a Title II classification, which is a utility, basically. The Title II classification, which is what was changed in 2015 after all the fear-mongering, what that does is it puts an ISP in the same category as a utility, like your electric company. It qualifies them for heavy, strict regulation. Now I'm going to quote the FCC chairman. Stiff, heavy regulation stifles competition. This is from the FCC chairman. Heavy regulation stifles competition. Everybody's crying, oh, well, we have to put this in the government hands. We have to regulate it by the government because there's no competition. We don't have choice. It's not a free market. We don't have the option to go here or go there. Well, that's not exactly true. 70% of Americans do have a choice. That's a major majority that has plenty of consumer power. And with that power, when the consumer demands something, they get it, or the company risks going out of business. It's supply and demand. It's a free market. People say it doesn't work in this, but it does. Now, if there was only one choice, again, repeat what the chairman said. Heavy regulation stifles, it stunts, it makes it impossible for competition to arise. So, yeah, let's keep it a Title II. Let's make Comcast the one and only ISP that you can go to. Let's regulate them. Let's give them more regulations. Let's make it harder for you to have a choice. Is that what you want? People aren't thinking about this. They're not looking at the big picture, and that's the problem. All they're hearing is, oh no, he's gonna cut off my internet. Oh no, he's going to block me. Oh no, he's going to sell me packages that I might want anyway. Why should we say, hey, you can't bundle this stuff up and give us other options? You know, in Portugal, people point to Portugal as an example of what it would be like. Guess what? Portugal consumers, they love their package deals. Do you want to know why? Because it offers the lower income people a much more suitable package that is aimed towards what they wanted. They're getting what they wanted and what they asked for. They tapped into a market that wasn't being touched, and it's being successful. So don't point at Portugal. It's a bad example. Net neutrality in concept. It's brilliant. We want open internet. We want freedom to go to whatever website we want to. We don't want our internet speeds restricted or throttled in any ways. We don't want other companies to get special favors. It's great. But guess what happens? The only reason you haven't seen that now, it's not the only reason, but it's the main reason that you don't see, them selling in packages, which you might see that in the future, and if you do, and you don't like it, go with Dish Network. Anybody can get Dish Network. Almost. Obviously, your satellite has to be able to see the sky, so you do have a choice. And if you don't have a choice, the 70% of people that do have a choice will speak for you. Now, if you want one company to be in control of the internet, if you want one organization or one ISP, and you don't want other options, well, that's stupid. Because the only thing that keeps prices fair, that keeps what the consumer wants in demand, the only thing is the fear of the consumer rejection. If the consumer rejects the ideas and they change companies, that company goes out of business. They don't want to go out of business. And the main reason why we don't see these problems today is because the consumer doesn't want it. And the only reason that matters is because the consumer has influence. And the only reason the consumer has influence is because the consumer has options. Back to FCC chairman, heavy regulation prevents competition. You regulate, you lose competition. You lose competition, you lose options. You lose options, you lose consumer influence. It's that simple. So again, if you want to have influence over what companies do, you need to have an option to go with another company. If you continue to regulate and over-regulate these ISPs, you will not have those options. You will not have that influence. You will be basically susceptible to whatever they give you. It's like your electric company. Title II regulations. There's only one. You don't get to choose whether you go with such and such power company or such and such power company. Not unless you move and go 20 miles down the road. Then you might have another choice. At your location, one. And here's another thing. You know how solar power is trying to come up in the world and it's not able? That's why. Regulations. The regulations don't even make sense for the solar power community. It's a different type of technology. Again, regulations stifle innovation. Regulations stifle competition. It's a lose-lose scenario. So here's where we are. Currently going on right now, thanks to 2015, ISPs fall under a Title II classification. That's your net neutrality as a law, as legal text. It basically gives the control and the influence. It takes it from the consumer and gives it to the bureaucrats in Washington. It gives it to the guys that are in bed with the big corporations, the guys who are paid and who are lobbied to be influenced, and they take orders from the companies that they represent. They don't represent you and I. And if you think they do, then you're not paying attention. Title I, information services. That's where the ISPs belong. That's what guarantees your access. That's what guarantees you have a say on what's being done with your internet. And instead of the consumer having the influence, instead of you and I having choices and having the power to say, hey, we want this, and if you don't give it to us, we're going to leave and go here. Instead of that, give it to the government. People are saying, oh no, we're not giving it over to the... Yes, you are. That's what the Title II classification is. It allows for heavy regulation by the government, and you're giving it to them. You're giving it to politicians. You're giving control of the internet to politicians. That's what your net neutrality is. Is that what you really want? Do you really want to say, okay, I don't want to have any influence over what these companies do. Let's get this corrupt politician over here. Let's let him do it. And he'll take good care of us. No, he won't. He will take good care of whoever's paying him the most, whoever's giving him the most perks. Have you found a good politician yet? I'm sorry. Net neutrality is a scam. Net neutrality is a fear tactic being pushed onto the public consumers to scare them into giving control of the internet away. And you're falling for it. The majority of you are falling for it. I hope that you wake up. I hope that you do a little research and you look at the biggest proponent means in favor of net neutrality. That was Netflix. Look where Netflix is sitting now, in Comcast's pocket. And they don't give a shit about your net neutrality. They said so, literally, like this year. They literally said they are not worried about a repeal. The people know what they deserve. That's what they said. You and I should be in control. We should have the influence of the market, not the politicians. Net neutrality gives it to the politicians. So keep thinking whatever you want to think. Keep believing whatever fear tactics are coming towards you. I understand them. Last year, I was on the total opposite side of this. Last year, yes, we need net neutrality. I don't care if it's a regulation. It's the most important regulation we ever had. Wrong. I was wrong. It's bullshit, and it takes the power away from you and I and gives it to corrupt bureaucrats, and that's not okay. I'm a little passionate about it. I'm passionate about it because I was wrong last year, or 2015. I was wrong for pushing the idea that we need net neutrality. I was wrong. And if you're pushing the idea today, you're wrong. And I just told you why. And if you don't believe it, look it up. It's in the open internet. You better look it up while you can. I mean, right now it's going to the FCC, I think in May, and they're going to determine whether they're going to repeal it or not. Currently, Title II is in effect. Currently, we do have net neutrality. We've had it for 2 years. We don't need it. We don't want it. We shouldn't have it. It gives the power to your politicians. It creates monopolies. It takes away your choice and your influence. So you be the judge. Do you want the influence, or do you want your politician to have the influence? There is a free market in this country, and it does work. And to prove it works, Comcast tried throttling services. It was a failure, and they stopped because so many people were leaving them. That's your influence. They stopped. Alright guys, that's enough. I'm heated enough. I hope you're heated too. And I don't care if you don't like this. If you don't like it, it just means you haven't researched it enough. You haven't looked it up enough for yourself. So I'm not mad at you. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I said anything, but this is my field. It's been cut. I can't wait to get out here and fly again. Thank you, Billy, wherever you are. I think you're in the woods, actually, but the field looks amazing. It's not nipple high anymore. There's no 10-foot tall briars. I see a couple sticks remaining from them, though. So anyways, guys, that's it. I just wanted to share my experience of net neutrality and what I have learned over the last 2 years, because it's not my first year messing with it. Like I said, last year I was in favor of the rules for net neutrality. This year my eyes are open, and I know in my heart and soul what we need to do. And what we need to do is maintain influence. We need to keep the influence with the consumer. And by continuing to keep it on a Title II classification, we take that influence of the consumer and we give it to corrupt politicians. I mean, I don't care what you think. That is what is happening. You can come up with all these other, they're going to do this. You're scared. Stop being a scared little shit. They're not going to do that. And if they do that, you leave them and they go out of business. That's it, guys. Caps out.